size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you here. Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
This is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show.
This is a second coming. This is a call to arms. Your finest hour won't be wasted.
All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier.
But I have a question, though. Those two foul shots at the end of the game, did you miss them? Or did you miss them?
Not exactly a soup question, is it?
And Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
Right now, it's not about talent. It's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest, who can go out there and play the smartest. Now, they've been here before us. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
This is gonna
Good morning and welcome to another March Madness edition of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show each and every Saturday morning. Two fine stations in the Granite State, News Radio 610 and 96.7 Manchester area. We got it covered for you. WGIR AM 610. Seacoast 96.7 is your home. We got championship games today. We got quarterfinal action in Division II. Heck, there's even a hockey championship marathon action at the Verizon Wireless Arena centered around Manchester, and you got two Manchester schools going at it for the championship, Central against Memorial, so that's pretty cool stuff. Good morning, Dave Haley, NHSportsPage.com. Happy to see you, and it's kind of nice. Both of us, once again, at quarterfinal playoff games last night in Division I. You were at that Spalding-Exeter game. I was at Nashua South and Dover, an overtime thriller there. It's just fun to be in March, isn't it?
This is the time of year with all these previews I write and these games I go to that if somebody asked me to break down their son and their daughter playing dodgeball in the backyard, I'd have a full breakdown, quotes from opposing coaches and the whole deal. Yeah, we went to we both saw good games last night, and then there was a third, BG Central. That was an incredible game as well. It's funny telling Jeff Holmes and Tim Cronin after the game as I was interviewing them. I said both games are in overtime right now. And they said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I mean, it was a crazy night. And I got to talk to you one other thing. Jay McKenna. I told you this last night. I sat with Jay McKenna, the Winnicott coach, and they lost to Bedford in the first round. Of course, Bedford today at 4 plays Trinity,
which is great. I think. I wish it was at 5. Actually, I kind of wish
I'm going to be able to catch it. See, I'm going to the Division IV championship game today with Elliot Bless up in Plymouth,
and that's noon, right?
It's at 1.
1 o'clock in Plymouth. So that's Lisbon. Why don't we run down the lineup for today of who's playing, and why don't we run down the scores from last night, and then we'll get into it.
This show feels kind of empty without Guilford scores, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Probably the viewership has gone down and.
Yeah, even though it's a radio show.
Is anyone out there? Anyway, yeah. So last night, 3 games on the schedule. First, the game that you guys were at last night, which I'm looking forward to talking about. Nashua South with a 61-57 win over Dover. And an overtime game there. And, well, we'll talk about this when we get to it. But David Dunham, again, he's been the guy who stepped up for these guys in the first 2 rounds. He's been huge. 19 points last night. Tim Preston had 19. Jack Preston, 13. On the other side, Billy Carroll with 17 and Josh Cody with 15 for Dover. That's an impressive. Mike Romps does such a good job. Those guys battle.
That's just a solid basketball team. I don't know how they finished 8-10 in the regular season.
I know. And they lost Mike Wands, too, who was arguably their best player. BG with a big upset. They win. Central season is over.
That, to me, is a shocker.
That is a shocker.
I think BG, Adam Furious, our producer, likes that for some reason. Aren't you an Albert? No, you're a Londonderry grad, right? Okay, so I could see that a little bit.
Just hating on Central.
That means you're hating on Central, but you're kind of rooting for BG.
Got beat up by some Central kids once.
Did the little green guys?
Have you seen the size of me? It's a pretty big Central kid.
Look, I mean, I think BG is capable, certainly, but I'm surprised that they were able to win at Central.
Such a young team.
Yeah, I mean, and Central, a lot of people talked about it when I was at the South game last night. Man, they were 15-0. And then they lose 4 of their last 5.
Yeah, something happened there. C.J. Boykins had 22 points.
That's what happened.
Yeah, Kyle Gavin had 15 points. Lund, 12 points. Now, this is when I thought this is the expanded part of the scoreboard. When Jeff Lund, over Twitter, I saw that he got his 3rd and 4th fouls back-to-back. By the end of the 3rd, I thought they were done. But Lund only had 12 points, and I was told by TNF, our friend from the forum, that Tyler Kelly did a tremendous job on him defensively. But 72-70 in overtime. Dawson Dixon with 21, Troy Pelletier with 17, and Brett Hansen with 10 for Central. And then the game I was at last night, Spalding, 50-45. Spalding with their 3rd Final Four berth in 6 years and their 2nd in a row. 50-45 win over Exeter. Dominic Parody with 19 points. He was all over the place. And it was a tremendous atmosphere last night in Spalding. They had both bleachers out at the Rochester Rec Center, or whatever they call that place, that huge like dome they got over there. And the Spalding side of it was packed, and people, it was standing room only. There were people on both sides of the bleachers standing because there was no seats.
Nice.
And the Exeter side was pretty much full too. I mean, it was probably 3/4 full, but huge crowd last night. Great game, and Spalding. Not so sure Spalding isn't the favorite to win this thing.
If Trinity does not get there, if Bedford knocks off Trinity today, and you got a Bedford Spalding South BG Final Four, Spalding's the favorite. Maybe South.
Yeah.
Although Spalding did beat South.
I started to say earlier, talking about Jay McKenna, who I sat with last night from Winnicott, the Winnicott coach, and Coach Lamprey, his assistant. But I said, yeah, so what happened in the Bedford game? And he said, we didn't throw it in the ocean. And he said, Bedford is really good. I said, really? Because I covered that first game, the buzzer beater that wasn't game. And he said, yeah, they're a lot better. He goes, they got a lot better. He said, Fitzy.
That's what McKenna said.
That's what Jay McKenna said. And he said, Fitzy, he said, Mike Fitzpatrick's got like an old school Central team, the way they run it over there defensively and going through the post. And he said, I said, you think they can beat Trinity? He said, I absolutely think they can beat Trinity. So it should be a good one today, too.
Well, we'll talk a lot about those games as the course of the next 2 hours rolls through. There is some action today. You mentioned earlier the D4 championship game. Manchester's Derryfield School, the Derryfield Cougars, going to Plymouth State, playing in the finals for, I think, the second time in the last 3 years. They're playing Lisbon. Didn't Lisbon beat them? Did these guys play each other for the championship a couple years ago?
2 years ago.
So a rematch of that game from 2 years ago.
Different cast of characters except for Chad Knighton, but yeah, and Mike Heath.
So Chad Knighton was a sophomore. No, he's only a junior this year,
He's only
right?
a junior. He was a freshman with braces, this little kid who was playing point guard for them, and just this little kid was. Did you do that game, John? A couple years ago, they had. It was a weird game because they had flooding at Plymouth State. It was like the terrible rains or something, and so they couldn't play the championship game at Plymouth State, so they moved it to Southern New Hampshire. They played the Final Four games at Plymouth, and then the championship was Southern New Hampshire, and it was a weird atmosphere. It was like noon, and Derryfield doesn't have a big crowd. They just don't. Today
it's a select school.
It's a select school, and I always say nice things about the Derryfield kids because I'm going to be working for them in about 6 years. But Lisbon, had a pretty good crowd, and I think they're going to be nuts up there today. But it was sort of a weird. It wasn't where they were used to playing.
Well, because Derryfield doesn't really have a community.
No,
they're in Manchester / Hooksett. And they don't really have that hometown like Lisbon or Colebrook or, any of these other
Newmarket,
small town, small school teams.
For anybody going to this game today, and I'm sorry we're not going to be having it on video because John and Pete are going to be at Division III as we've turned into the Conant Basketball Network here. But
they love us.
Yeah. Well, they're great. Hey, we love those guys. But Lisbon has a kid by the name of Chad Knighton who put on one of the epic performances in the history of Division IV basketball the other night against Newmarket. They were down 26-7. They went on a 10-0 run to end the half and kind of got back in it. And then at the end of the game, Knighton, with Christian Hawkins wearing him like a suit, was hitting fall-away threes, pull-up jumpers, pulling up on a dime from 22 feet. He had 28 of their 48 points. This kid is something else. I'm telling you. This
And
kid
that's
is,
coming off a game where it was a
hit
triple
37.
overtime game. He scored 37. Yeah.
I looked to see if he could get the all-time record for most points in a tournament, but that profile game killed him in the second round when they won 36-30, where they
stall
held
ball
the
game.
stall ball game. But and Dave Burrows had something like 150 points in 4 games at Newt once way back in the day. But anyway, this kid, Elliot is going to the game with me, and I'm excited for him to see this kid. He's just such a good kid, and he's grown now. The braces are gone. But he's like a 6'2" guard, and he gets great elevation on his jumper. And I definitely think Derry Field's the favorite today. But the Lisbon crowd, we're going to talk to Sam Natty in a little while, their coach. But that Lisbon crowd today is going to be insane up there. I mean, the whole town will be there, and they may be tailgating and the whole deal. So I love these D4 finals just because you really get the whole town that comes out.
All right, so Sam Natty from the Lisbon Panthers will join us in just a little bit. And I'm scurrying. I got the program here from Division III and Division IV tournament, and I was looking for the record book because one thing I like about the NHIAA programs and fans that are listening, you haven't got these because you don't get them until the semifinal level. I was thinking I might have got them at the quarterfinals, but I got them at the semifinal game the other night when I was at SNHU for Division III. And they combine the Division III and Division IV NHIAA basketball championship official program, and they also combine the Division I and Division II programs. So if you're going on Tuesday or Wednesday to D1 or D2 semis at UNH, you can have a chance. And they show all the all-time records. And you alluded to the Dave Burrows his record of points in a tournament. And I always love every year when I get these programs. I always like looking at it and kind of refreshing myself and just going back and seeing who did what. And, one of the interesting things from the Division IV program, Carlton Fisk.
Yeah.
All right. He's in there.
What is it?
Most field goals, one player, one tournament game.
Charleston.
Yeah. Charlestown High School, which doesn't even exist now.
No.
I don't know if it turned into there's not even a school in Charlestown. Definitely not a high school. So would that be like Keene? Now would they go to Keene?
Yeah, in that area.
He had 19 field goals in a 1965 tournament game. Pudge. Before he was Pudge. 10 years before he would hit that famous home run in Game 6 of the 1975 World Series, he had 19 field goals in one game for Charlestown High School.
What's interesting about those, too, is you look back at the lower divisions is sometimes you'll see the schools that have grown. I don't remember if it's Division III or Division IV, but Merrimack was in the championship game for D3, back in 1970 something. Talk about a town that grew.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? And
I know.
And I mean, you look back even just a few years ago, Hollis Brookline was playing in Division III, and John Stark and Cole Brown.
Bo was a Division II team. Yeah. Here it is, Merrimack. This is 1970. They lost. They're in there for a not so good reason. The most points total in one final game. There was 178 points scored in 1970. Farmington beat Merrimack 95-83.
Yeah, Farmington and Merrimack.
In 1970. So when I was born, I was born in 1970. Merrimack was a Division IV team back then.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's funny to look back, and then in Division IV even, you have schools like Calvary Christian and Stratford and Alton that don't even exist anymore, like you said. I mean, they're not even around.
Here's the Dave Burrows. This is a Division III stat.
He graduated same year as me. I played with him.
Yeah, most points, one player state tournament.
Good.
149.
Is
Dave
that good?
Burrows, Newt, 1990.
Is that good? Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, but I don't know how many games. He probably played 4 games, right? That's the max.
Yeah,
you can
149
play.
points in 4 games.
Yeah, that's pretty good stuff.
It's a career for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I still see Dave Burrows every year. He comes to my Blackout Friday up in Portsmouth every year. He was a great player and went on to have a good college career at Bryant College.
All right, we'll take a timeout, come back, and we'll talk about the game that you were at, the Spalding-Exeter game, which got out to a pretty big lead for Spalding, but Jeff Holmes' Exeter Bluehawks teams, they do not quit, and they made a game of it. We'll talk about that when we come back. And we got Sam Natty from the Lisbon Panthers taking on Derryfield for the state championship in D4 this afternoon at Plymouth State University. The New Hampshire High School Hoop Show rolls on News Radio 610 and 96.7. We're certainly going round and round in the New Hampshire High School hoop world as D1 quarterfinal action Can it really be called quarterfinals still when there was only 3 games played? Because one of the games got moved to this afternoon, which is kind of cool.
And why did that happen, by the way? There's 6, somebody put on Twitter, they're 6.6 miles away from each other, Bedford and Trinity, and they canceled the game. I mean, there was dry pavement at 4:30.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why that happened either.
know.
But nevertheless, you got Trinity, you got Bedford at 4 o'clock. So the final ticket to the Final Four will be punched probably around 5:30.
There's gonna be a lot of players at that game. A lot of kids going to that game. I guarantee you, all the BG kids will be there.
I guarantee you, all the South kids will be there because they're playing the winner of that game.
Yep.
You had an overtime game. You mentioned BG, the upset winner against Central last night in overtime. They knock out the team that a lot of people said were the favorites to win this, along with Trinity. And then the game that you were at in Rochester last night, great atmosphere. They opened up the place so they have more people in there. Exeter, of course, always has a good crowd, and they don't have to travel too far to get to Rochester from Exeter. And they got treated to a pretty good ball game. 50-45 was the final, but it was a lot wider of a margin, and Exeter somehow found a way to get back into that game.
Big, yeah, and I wrote about it. It's on NA Sports page this morning, but pretty funny. It was a 6-point game. I think Tyler Russ hit a 3. It was a 6-point game with 5 seconds to go in the first half, and then Nick McGregor, from Spalding, who beat Exeter with a buzzer beater, 47-44 early in the year, drained a 22-foot buzzer beater 3 at the end of the half to put him up 9. That's a big difference between 6 and 9 and mentally. And the third quarter, they just kind of the kid Alex Gray for Spalding was great. He had 11 points. He had about 4 or 5 steals. Nevigins didn't do a ton down low. Bellio kind of had an off night, but they run those sets, and Parody has such a quick release. Like, he just gets it and boom, it's up. I mean, he's 6'4". I don't know what he's doing for college ball, but he could be a good Division III basketball player. I mean, he's just all over the place. He's smart. He handles pressure. He knows when to flash. And both coaches know each other so well that, I'm sitting there with Jay McKenna, and Jay's saying, oh, this is the play where they try to go backdoor, and you're watching it, and you see the kid try to sneak back. It was Max Medley try to go backdoor for Exeter, and Spalding sniffs it out. And after the game, I said something to Jeff Holmes. He's like, yeah, I tried to sneak a few things by Timmy, Cronin. He's like, he caught everything. But both coaches know each other so well. I mean, they just... it's like they know each other's plays. But Spalding just takes care of business, and they're
just solid. They're just well coached, and that's just a good basketball team. They execute.
When they're leading by 8 or 9 late, they win those games because they take care of the ball. Like, they don't turn over. They don't make stupid passes. They don't. You'll see teams, up by 7. They'll get a rebound, and the kid throws a baseball pass to somebody, and it goes flying out of bounds, and you say, you don't need it. You don't need it. They don't do those things. They just don't. They take care of the ball. They move. Everyone's moving, and everything they do has a purpose. A guy is cutting. A guy is flashing. A guy is screening away. Everyone's doing something, in the frame of the offense. And I think Tim Cronin, I always talk about it, but I think he's a fun guy to watch coach, and he's great. And they went last year, and they didn't play great against Merrimack. And I think Merrimack, as we found, was the best team. I think they're ready. I mean, I think they want to win this thing. Of course they want to win, but I'm saying I think they're ready to win this thing. I'm not saying they're going to, but they're going to be a very tough out. I mean, last year they showed up, they lost by like 10-11. It was kind of a game. I don't think that's happening this time.
Now, Dominic Parody had an opportunity to come on the show.
He certainly did.
He opted not to.
Very strongly. He looked at me like I was trying to borrow money from him. He's like, and I'm like, and I said, Dom, I said, you don't have to do this. He goes, yeah, I think I'm all set. He probably knows a lot of people listen, and it gets replayed all week long. YouTube hits. We're getting like 300 replays on YouTube.
We still love you, Dom, the Dominator. And he's got the best Twitter handle. It's like Badonka Dom or something like that. That's his Twitter.
Nice kid. Yeah, I think he's tremendous. And it's funny, other coaches always joke. I think Dave Keefe's joke. He's like, that kid's been at Spalding for 7 years.
I know, it seems that way, huh?
Yeah.
It really does. So they're going to take on the BG. So that's an interesting matchup.
In the first game.
Yeah, so that's a 6 o'clock game on Tuesday
night. The one seed always,
UNH.
for people out there, the one seed always plays the second semifinal game in each division. And so, Yeah, so you're looking at Trinity Bedford winner facing Nashua South, which is tremendous, and then BG and Spalding. I think Spalding beat them by 11 earlier in the season, I believe.
Yeah,
BG.
and I just think, BG. I don't think that they're quite ready for that. I mean, they do have the
even
the
after
stud
last night.
Player. You know what?
I didn't either until last night.
Maybe there's something about Central, like kind of things went south quick.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for that, and I don't know what happened there, but I'm just not sure BG is ready for that. Maybe if they were playing someone else who was kind of surprised to be in the Final Four, so. If Exeter had gotten there and it was Exeter BG, then I would give BG a better chance. But I just don't give them as much of a chance against Spalding. I just don't.
I didn't. So one of our friends on the forum had said to me, texted me yesterday and said, I think BG's going to upset. He didn't think, he knows. BG's going to upset Central tonight. Like, it's already seen the movie. And my response was, I think they're too young and inexperienced to pull that off, and they did, and they hit foul shots, and
Boykin had a huge game.
Jimmy's been there before. Jimmy Mignol,
22 points for him. He had 14 of those in the second half. I also heard that Dawson Dixon did not start that game, and I don't know what the reasoning was, but I had heard through some people that there was some issues this week in practice between Dawson and Doc.
Yeah.
Meaning Doc Wheeler, so could have been disciplinary. I don't know.
I heard the
I guess
same
he
thing.
sat out the first few minutes of the game and then came in.
Had 21.
And then ended up with 21 points. So, still, I don't know what the issue is there. But we'll get into that game a little bit. We'll talk about my game between South and Dover, overtime thriller. We've got the highlight package of that one up on nasportspage.com.
Yeah.
I spoke after the game with Dave Dunham and the Preston brothers. We'll get around that. We'll get into some of the Division II quarterfinal matchups, which are coming up tonight.
We'll talk about the D3 semis later, too.
That's coming. I mean, there's just so much going on.
You could waste an hour on our website. I wouldn't say waste. You could spend an hour on our website, honestly, with all the highlights, all the articles, the previews.
I think what we're going to do today, Adam Furious, call Mark Hebert, tell him, don't bother coming in. We're going 4 hours. We're going right till 11 o'clock. You think Mark will be okay with that?
I don't think you'll mind a day off.
Actually, I'd love to give people money advice. I'm sure that should be a huge help.
I'm down for 4 hours of hair metal.
The economy will go right back in the toilet.
We'll come back and we will talk to Sam Natty, the head coach of Lisbon. They're taking on Derryfield for the D4 championship. I wonder if he's already making his way down. Well, no, he's just going to Plymouth.
No,
so.
he said his girlfriend has watched more film on Derryfield the last 2 nights, so she's ready to leave him.
And she said, you know what?
Yeah.
Those guys are really tall.
Enough is enough. Really tall, yeah.
More of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show coming up next on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Adam Furious is on his game this morning.
He certainly is. What's this, little unskinny bop?
Robert Dahl on base for Poison.
I'm not going to lie. I honestly spent about 20 minutes getting everything up to date for you guys because I am producer of the year.
You are the man, brother.
Well, our next guest, probably not quite up to scoop on all the hair bands and stuff like that because he's a younger guy. His name is Sam Natty, head coach of the Lisbon Panthers, playing in the championship game this afternoon, 1 o'clock, Plymouth State University. They take on the Derryfield Cougars. Good morning, Coach Natty, and thanks for coming on. Are you a hairband guy like Dave Haley and myself?
I actually have to tell you, Hair Nation's one of the presets on my car's radio. So
that's why I'm rooting for Lisbon today. There it is.
But we're up north. It's just getting popular up here.
Coach, how you feeling just a few hours before tip-off of a championship game?
Oh, I feel good. I think the guys are ready to play. We've had a couple of good practices, and at this time of the year, everything's over. But the next 32 minutes, so we'll show up today. It's just going to be how we handle their size.
So we were talking earlier about Chad Knighton. It was funny. I was at the Spalding Exeter game last night. I'm following Twitter, and I see you'll be happy to know I saw on Twitter Chad Knighton say like 8:45. He said bedtime, biggest game of my life tomorrow.
Wow.
I'm headed to
Wow.
bed.
Yeah, I saw a couple of guys put that up, and I hope they actually meant it. I hope they didn't go sit in bed and keep watching tape all night
I think they
long,
were going to
but-
go party at the Lisbon House of Pizza. They just didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah, it closes at 9, so they wouldn't have been there too long.
But the biggest challenge, and you and I spoke on the phone yesterday, I think the biggest challenge for you guys today is the height of Derryfield, and Pete's seen them as well. Their guards are so big. I mean, for Division IV, I mean, they have 6'2", 6'3" guards, and, you know, sort of Max Anderson's kind of a tweener, and Chris Rizos is a good-sized kid, and Tyler Zorn, but you guys are a smaller team that kind of is at your best when you get out and run. You know, what have you kind of talked to the kids about, you know, the game plan for today?
I think you hit it right on the head. We have to get out and run because they are big at every position. They're certainly the biggest team in Division IV this year, and I don't remember many that size ever. But they use their size well. You know, their guards are all long up top. You know, they get into the passing lanes, and they play great help defense. And we've got to get out and get some easy buckets because if we're going to, grind out half-court possessions every trip down the floor, it's going to be a tough day. So we've got to give ourselves a chance to, get a little space and use our speed to our advantage.
Sam Natty, head coach of Lisbon, the number 6 seed in the D4 tournament, taking on a number 4 seed. So you don't see a lot of 6 versus 4 championship game matchups. A lot of times chalk rules, and you see the higher seeds advancing. So good job out of you guys to get there. Let's talk about the journey, because when you think back to when this thing started back on February 26th, you guys were taking on Moultonborough, the 11 seed, and a triple overtime game. So there were probably multiple points that you could have got knocked out in the first round. And when you look back, a couple of weeks now, do you think about that and say, man, if that shot would have fell, or we didn't do that, or Chad Knighton doesn't have 37 in that game for us, we could be, heading to Plymouth to watch the game instead of playing in it?
There were 3 or 4 times in that game where I thought, we really got to get lucky to give ourselves a chance now. They came in. I've never seen a shooting performance like Moultonborough had that night. I think they tied the state record for threes hit in a game. We played pretty good defense, and we had hands and faces. Drew Swedberg was back. And he certainly played like the player he's capable of. Tristan Price, I think, hit 5 or 6 threes himself, and we had to hang on, and we got our chance and just kind of outlasted them. But yeah, it was certainly 3 minutes to go in regulation. I thought we were in serious trouble.
Talk to people about Mike Heath, who is a kid who kind of gets maybe overshadowed by Chad Knighton. But I remember Mike a couple years ago, the year before you started coaching at Lisbon. He played very well in the championship against Derryfield as a sophomore, and he's kind of a tweener. He's a big guy in that division, but he's about 6'2", but he just works hard. He can hit from 15 feet, and if he gets shut down tonight, if he gets shut down in 5 hours, the way that Josh Bogartis of Littleton got shut down by Derryfield, you don't have a chance. I mean, he's an important guy today because he's going against Roger Larrabee and Mitch Green and the big guys for Derryfield.
Yeah, I think obviously he's a big part of what we try and do offensively. And today's going to be all about the mental side of the game for him because he's got to spread guys out. We've talked about putting him in space. He's 6'2", 6'3", but he's not that big. He weighs 170 pounds. He's strong, but Larrabee's real big. And if Mike has to play with his back to the basket all day, it's going to be tough. So he's got to pick and choose his spots. And then when he goes, he's got to go hard. And, he stepped up a lot for us this year. He hit a shot against Profile that kept our season alive. Coming down with a rebound and a ton of traffic and going back up and scoring. So, it's there. And, if he plays a little bit of confidence, and, I think he's going to be able to do some things because he does get overshadowed by what Chad does. And part of his problem is he's just a solid player. He never does anything flashy, so he doesn't get noticed a lot. But, yeah, today he's one of the keys for today.
How about the game, the semifinal game? It was the first of the 2 semis at PSU on Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
Yeah, it's all flowing together.
We've been to 6 games since then.
Yeah, we've been all over the place.
On.
But your game, I'm following it on Twitter. I was at the D3 semis that night, and I'm following the D4 action on Twitter, and I see Newmarket just rolling you guys in the first quarter, in the first half. Dave, I think you mentioned 26-7 was the low point for you guys. You end up winning that game basically, on a last minute or last second basket by Knighton. But talk about the comeback. And basketball, you hear it all the time. It's a game of runs. But man, that was certainly a game of runs.
Well, I think the first thing, I think that's a comeback that probably only happens at Plymouth. Because for D4 going to Plymouth is far different than anything you see in the other divisions, because our gyms are so small. Big crowds, a couple hundred people, and then you get there. And once momentum starts to shift, it can get wild. And I called a timeout. We were down 26-7, and the guys came down, and there wasn't any look of panic. It was just we got to get going, and and they did, and we kind of chipped away slowly. And even in that first half, Newmarket plays great half-court defense, and we were getting shots; they just weren't falling. So we knew if we could get a couple to go, we'd start to build some momentum. And then, in the second half, Chad went crazy. He hit 3 or 4 of the toughest shots I've seen all year. We had Justin Quinn step up and hit a big 3 with a minute left. It was one of once we got going, there was Newmarket was just hoping the clock ran out, because we had some things going that you can't predict or draw up or make happen. Chad was just making plays, and Hawkins did a great job on him as well. But Chad just made one more play than he did.
So, all right. So my buddy, my partner Elliot Bless is going to this game with me today. He hasn't seen a Division IV game in a while, and this is the first championship game. He's excited to go to Plymouth State to see the atmosphere. What is he going to see on the Lisbon side of the gym today? And is he possibly going to see anything in the parking lot with the Lisbon fans?
Well, there might be a chance, but what's good about teams up here in the north is we'll have a lot of people from Lisbon. I mean, the whole town will be there, but it's one of those things that all the towns in the North Country, up here, Woodsville, Littleton, all the way up to Colbrook, Groveton, everywhere in between, they take a great deal of pride when one of their teams gets to a final. So we'll have people from all over the place going down there today. People in the last few days have seen me. None of them. The last thing they say has nothing to do with good luck or anything. It says, bring it back to the north. And I think it's a sense of pride that everybody has up here. That we've been on a pretty good streak the last 20 years or so, and there'll be a lot of people from a lot of towns down there today.
Do you think it's fitting? I mean, Dave talks to me a lot, and just in general about he thinks it should be a North versus South championship. Maybe there should be a sort of like a North tournament and a South tournament, and then have the winners play for the true state championship. Do you like that idea? I mean, it's probably never going to happen, but that's kind of just the way you described it, with those other northern towns and teams kind of all rooting for you guys against the big guys, the big bad kids from the southern part of the state. Would you be in favor of an idea like Dave has?
Yeah, I think it would be something worth looking at. A few years ago I wouldn't have done it, because I think there was such a difference between the North and the South that a good team from the South would have had a much easier time. But now that some of the old Class M schools have come down, everything's balanced out. So I think it would be kind of an interesting idea. I'm not sure that I'd want to have to go against some of these teams for a third or fourth time during the season, in a semifinal or anything like that. But I think it would certainly be entertaining, and it would certainly make the championship game something different than what we see sometimes.
Why do I ask this question all the time, and you and I have talked about this too on the phone, but you look at schools like Newmarket and Epping and even Dairyfield. They have Dairyfield plays in the BST Summer League. So did Newmarket last year. Epping has to scrimmage during the summer available to them. Winnicott, Portsmouth, St. Thomas. It's Exeter, whatever. They have the ability all summer long. These kids in Manchester, they can all meet in a gym. After the season, Carmen G. and Petruzzi can call up Troy Pelletier and Dawson Dixon. They can be at the Southern New Hampshire and play pickup ball within an hour. You guys are so spread out. We had Buddy Trask in studio, and he's saying their shortest road game is 2 hours, at some points of the season. How is it that you guys do this well? I mean, how is it still that the northern teams are able to do this? And you describe it kind of like Hoosiers up there, and you have it just seems like when you guys get to this point in the season, those northern kids are tougher. They're just more ready to play on that big stage. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, a lot of the towns up here are old blue-collar mill towns, so it's kind of the personality of the kids and the personality of everybody in town. It's just how things go, I guess. But I think with the schedule that we play, I would say arguably that Plymouth isn't as tough a place to play for my guys as it is going up to Colebrook or going to Littleton for a big game. And even the teams up here that struggle. I mean, granted, we didn't have Chad, but we lost to Woodsville. It was a 16 seed this year. Now we're in the finals. And it wasn't really that shocking to anybody up here just because we had to go down to Woodsville, which is a very tough gym to play in. So I think we're tested every year. Whoever the best northern team is, they've had to run through some obstacles to get there.
All right, Coach. Well, best of luck this afternoon. 1 o'clock tip time. Dave Haley, nhsportspage.com will be in the house, so full coverage tomorrow on the website. Probably, I don't know if you're doing the Magical Mystery Tour this afternoon or what, but I don't know when that'll get up on the website, but should be a heck of a ball game. And no offense, I'm a Southern guy, so I'm rooting for the Southern team, but we do appreciate you coming on the show nevertheless.
I'm rooting,
probably for the last
I'm rooting for you, Sam. You know it, buddy.
I know he would be. But I'll tell you what, Sam, before this year, he couldn't even get me to talk Division IV basketball.
That's right.
You're going to have to make a trip up here sometime. It's really not that bad.
I will. We promised Buddy Trask that we would go up there, and he said you can have the cot in my basement or something.
At the end of the Newmarket Epping games, I showed up late after covering the Colebrook game, and I looked at Pete, and Pete said, "Hey, who won Profile Lisbon?" And I had like a single tear run down my cheek that Pete was actually asking me about Profile Lisbon. I'm so proud of him.
All right, Coach. Good luck this afternoon.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Sam Natty, coach of Lisbon, going up against Derryfield. Should be a very, very exciting game. You bet. You better be tweeting.
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
Frequent tweeting. Okay.
We'll be doing. I'll have Elliot Bless do it. He's the professional tweeter on the staff.
All right, we'll take a timeout. Come back. We'll talk about the game that I was at, Dover, Nashua South. It was a thriller. It went to overtime. We'll talk about it next on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. News Radio 610 and 96.7. Well, Billy Carroll from Dover dropped 17 last night, but it wasn't enough as Dover loses in overtime to Nashua South, 61-57.
You're like Jim Nance with these euphemisms. It's unbelievable.
Producer of the year.
You just took a song about a guy hooking up with a 17-year-old girl and turned it towards Billy Carroll scoring 17 against South. It's amazing. It's a skill you have.
No Panther player had 17. You did have Tim Preston with 19, Dave Dunham with 19.
Unbelievable.
None bigger than the two that he got.
Play Dr. Feelgood coming out of break. I want to hear what Pete has to pull that together.
I'll come up with something. I
know you will.
Dunham with the big play in the game, a rebound of a miss, Trevor Knight free throw in overtime in the final, 30 seconds or whatever of overtime. This was interesting. Tie game, okay? South has the ball, and they could hold for the final shot if they want to because they got possession of the ball. The ball goes to Trevor Knight, who had really struggled from the free throw line. He had missed 2 in the fourth quarter. He was 2 of 4 in the first half, so he was basically 2 for 6 from the free throw line and didn't look good on any of them. So instead of letting them take their chances on a final shot with the game tied in overtime, Knight gets the ball. Mike Romson instructs his team prior, out of the timeout or whatever. If Knight gets the ball, foul him.
I like that move.
And I thought it was questionable because, you're giving them a chance to take the lead here.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to shoot that foul shot.
And he didn't because he missed them both. But one thing that they forgot, box out, because if you're relying on this guy to miss the free throw, you need to get those rebounds, correct?
Yeah.
They didn't. Dave Dunham did, and he puts it in, and that made it a 2-point game. Then Dover had a chance on the other way, but I think it was Josh Cody lost control of the basketball. He got called for a double dribble. So then South got it with like 3 seconds left. They ended up fouling Tim Preston, and Tim Preston drained 2 to make it a 4-point game, a 2-possession game, and that was it, 61-57. But a big game by Dave Dunham. Had 4 threes in the first half. South jumped out to a 13-point lead. It was 27-14, and then Dover made a nice run, got it within 2 points, 28-26. And then South scored a basket to go up 30-26 at the half. but it was a dogfight back and forth. And I'll tell you what about Dover. And I said this earlier. I don't know how they were 8-10 in the regular season.
Yeah.
Because they're not deep. They lost Wands.
Right.
But the 5 starters that they have, Josh Cody, Colin Shaughnessy, in the backcourt, and their up front players are Billy Carroll, who's kind of a swing guy, and then they got Grant Faustino and Phil Boyatsis. Those guys are all good. I mean, good, solid players, all double-digit scoring capable guys. They're just not very deep. They had a couple of guys came off the bench, Cam Toll, Carter Moore, but I don't know how they were under 500 this year because they're just real solid.
They lost a lot of close games, but yeah, I mean, Mike Romps had said that, and I used John Doyle's quote from Foster's in my preview, where he said, he basically said, it wasn't like this is a stunning one game. It was, we should have been better than this. We haven't been consistent enough during the regular season, and yeah, Dover's always a team that they're never easy to play, and they battle. There's a lot of seniors on that team.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want to say there's like 8 or 10, but. Yeah, I expected that game to be pretty tough. How about South, who's now going to the Final Four? And congratulations to Nate Mazerolle, first time that he's led that team there.
No, 2007. I walked in there.
Nothing happened before I started covering sports, so
Exactly.
I don't even recognize it.
Well,
to me, it's a no.
I was thinking about it because remember we had Nate on. Was it last week we had him on, or maybe the week before?
I think he was one of the 7 coaches we had on last week. Yes.
Well, we had him on, and he had mentioned how he was excited just to have a home playoff game.
Yeah.
Oh,
he does a great job.
And so I was like, man, this is the biggest game that Nashua South has hosted in a long, long time. And if there's one guy who knows his Nashua history, sports history, especially high school, it's Keith, the General Gardner.
He's the Tommy Amin of Nashua?
He is. And I've known him for a long time. Class of 1985. He'll tell you all about it every time you see him. He is a encyclopedia of sports, and especially Nashua sports. So the first guy I see, of course, when I walk in the gym last night, the General. So I said, hey, Keith, is this the biggest game that South's played since like that championship season of 2002? And he said, you know what? And that was when it was just Nashua High School. The split happened in 2004. And he said, well, they did make the semifinals in 2007. Sammy Alexanian, Michael Croney was on the team, who's now on the coaching staff with Nate Mazerolle. And they lost to Salem that year. That was probably Salem's back-to-back.
Josh Jones, yeah.
The
Sledge kid? Or
Kevin Sledge, yeah. And the other kid.
That's the year before I started covering it.
Yeah.
Oh, Kimball?
Mike Kimball. And they had a big guy that year as well. But they made it to the semis that year and lost to Salem. So this is really the biggest game that they've played in a long time.
And they're getting there off 2 overtime wins.
Yeah, maybe the biggest game in Nashua South history because it's almost 10 years now. So that's a team that, we talked about Spalding maybe the favorite. I had mentioned South. I mean, they've got it. They got the great point guard in Tim Preston. They've got the great big man in Jack
The pieces
Preston.
fit.
And then they've got that third guy, Dave Dunham, who I think is better than anybody else's third guy. Better than anybody on Trinity as a third guy. You got Carmen and Mabor, but I'll take Dunham over,
Patrick Keefe.
Because he's bigger. I don't know. It's going to be fun to look at. We got another hour to go. We're going to get into that Central BG game. We're going to spend some time on D2. I want to talk about the Sauhegan game, what an emotional lift they got after the tragedy that happened with Tony Barksdale last weekend.
Division 3.
In Division 3, of course. I'm going to do a championship game this afternoon. Another hour, New Hampshire High School Hoop Show coming right up.
Size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you here. Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
This is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show.
This is a second coming. This is a call to arms. Your finest hour won't be wasted.
All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier.
But I have a question, though. Those 2 foul shots at the end of the game, did you miss them? Or did you miss them?
Not exactly a soup question, is it?
And Dave Haley from NASportsPage.com.
Right now, it's not about talent. It's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest, who can go out there and play the smartest. Now, they've been here before us. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
Hour number 2 of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show on this, the 9th day of March 2013. March Madness officially really kind of at its boiling point right now. Next week, the ultimate Saturday, Championship Saturday, Division I and Division II championship games. Today, Division III and Division IV championship games in boys basketball. You also got hockey championship Saturday in the state of New Hampshire, Verizon Wireless Arena. Wouldn't it be cool to play for a championship at the Verizon Wireless Arena? We talk about how cool it is to be at Plymouth State or Southern New Hampshire University or UNH, but playing at the Verizon, I mean, that would be really cool. Did they try it?
I
there?
think, yeah, I was just thinking.
Lundholm, excuse me.
Didn't they win
Whittemore
Bonner
Center? At the Whittemore
Yeah, the
Center,
Whit, yeah.
they played there, but it wasn't the same. I mean, that's I think a 6,000 seat facility.
Yeah.
So even today for the hockey, you know, they'll have maybe a few thousand seats filled. Not even half full. The place holds 10,000 for hockey, but it's still pretty cool.
It's cool, but it's like when the Massachusetts State Championship games for football are played
at Gillette.
Are played at Gillette, yeah, and it's kind of cavernous in there. You know what I mean? Because I mean, you know, it's 60,000 seats or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool playing there. There's something about UNH. I mean, in Durham, there's something about
because the place is just jam packed.
Yeah, and it's a nice little arena over there. I mean, Lundholm, and I know it's older, but you know
they've improved it though.
Yeah, with the floor and so forth. They got to work on the people working the games too. It's still a crew of. I'm just going to stop talking right there. But they don't do as good of a job as I almost offended everybody over the age of 70. But it's they could do a better job with the game management over there. But it's just a great atmosphere and nice floor.
No, I agree with you 100%. And people have raved about SNU and how it is over there. And they talk about, and I haven't covered a lot of, tournaments there at Southern New Hampshire because as everybody knows, I've been a D1 and a D2 snob. So people were complaining the other night at SNU in the Division III semis when they didn't have the monitors. I'm talking about the media people. They had the monitors which give you the up-to-date stats and gives you everything as far as shooting percentages, turnovers, and fouls and rebounds and all that stuff. They didn't have that set up. So I asked some of the game staff there about it, and they said, they were having problems with the software or whatever, so they didn't have it. But you know what? It's still pretty cool.
I found us an in-guest studio.
Who?
A studio in-guest. Brett Sellingham, BST Basketball.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he just told him to come on over. But I'm looking. Plymouth State has the best atmosphere up there. It's terrible I usually just stand on the side because there's no media place really to sit. I'm sure the people are real concerned about where I'm sitting. But I love Plymouth State for the atmosphere. UNH, it's UNH, it's our biggest university and so forth. And Southern New Hampshire does the best job of putting everything on, especially for the media with their section and, like you said, the stats and so forth. So that's a good little...
Why don't we run down the scores from last night? 3 quarterfinal games in D1. There was also a girls' championship game last night in D2. Let's run down those scores, and we'll set it up as far as the what's on the plate today. There's some appetizers, and then there's some entrees, and then there's some dessert. You got afternoon games, you got late afternoon games, and then you got night games to cap it all.
Yeah,
off.
all day long. You could go straight out. We'll start with last night, the game that you and John Kester are at. We have video highlights of this on NASportsPage.com. Nashua South in overtime with a 61-57 win over Dover. Another big game for David Dunham. He's really stepped up. Tim Preston with 2 huge foul shots to seal it. as Nashua South moves on to the Final Four for the first time 2007, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
2007, so great. Congratulations, Nate Maswell, for that. Upset of the night, Bishop Girton 72-70 at Central in overtime.
I'm still shaking my head about
CJ
it.
Boykins with 21. Jeff Lund picked up his 4th foul in the 3rd quarter, but Bishop Girton had every guy stepped up and every guy contributed.
Can I get on you about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I know I always do.
Who am I mispronouncing their names?
Boykin.
Oh,
Earl Boykins, okay, the little guy. CJ Boykin, the little guy from BG. All right? There's no S at the end of that.
That was nice to you when you said, is Lisbon in New Hampshire earlier this year.
Hey, I just, look, I just want, people, a lot of people say Boykins because of the Earl Boykins thing, but it's CJ Boykin. And I'm sure he would appreciate that.
He's sleeping right now. Anyway, so I'll cut the S off.
Hey, if I can get into D3 and D4 basketball and ask you about scores,
I can say
on
Boykin,
Twitter,
not Boykin.
and you can say Boykin correctly.
It doesn't seem like a lot to ask now. Spalding game I was at last night, 50-45 winner over Exeter. 2nd straight Final Four for Spalding in their 3rd in 6 years. Dominic Parody with another big game, 19 points. And Spalding, they may be the favorite. I don't know. Even with if Trinity goes, I think they may be the favorite. I don't know. Spalding just has it together. They have the experience. It's going to be a fun Final Four next week. So let's run down what's going on today. At 1 o'clock, the game that that Elliot Bless and I are going to be at today, the Division IV championship game. Lisbon takes on Derryfield at Plymouth State at 1 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, because God forbid you should be able to go to both games, at Southern New Hampshire University, Conant takes on Campbell for the 3rd time. John Kesty and Pete will be at that game doing video highlights. And again, Conant lost at home earlier this year to Campbell, then turned around and beat them by about 44 on Campbell's home floor, so it should be interesting today. Let's run down the quarterfinals tonight. Number 1, Pembroke takes on number 8, Pelham. I don't know if you know this. I wrote about this in the preview, but I just went online this morning. Keith Brown is out, broke his foot for Pelham.
I noticed he didn't play in that game against
Broke his
Plymouth,
foot.
or he got hurt in the game. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he broke his foot, so he's out.
So Pembroke, I know you want to get into all these, but think about this for a second. No Keith Brown, and then if Pembroke can get by this game, which I think you expect they will, especially now that we know that Brown's not going to play for Pelham, they're looking at playing the winner of a 12-13 game in the semis at UNH.
Yeah.
Wow.
This thing opened right up for him. Wouldn't it be interesting if they played Co-Brown in the semis after Co-Brown knocked him out last year in the quarters? But anyway, the 12-13 game you speak of, Wyndham hosting Co-Brown.
Which kind of helped me after Hollis let me down. Sorry, Mike Susi, but come on. I asked you last week on the program, just get to the game.
I know.
So I could, make my travel plans for tonight a lot easier going from Hollis to Nashua, or I have to be at 9 o'clock tonight.
How selfish of him.
But you know what? When Wyndham had the win against Oyster River, it's really kind of the same thing, me going from Wyndham to Nashua, than it would have been for me going from Hollis to Nashua, so it's not that bad. I think I'll be okay. Just don't go into overtime, please.
It's just crazy when you're a 12 seed and not only you win, but you got a home game coming up.
It happened with Alvern and Londonderry.
Yeah, Alvern and Londonderry.
Who did Londonderry beat? Was it Central or Pinkerton that year?
I thought Alvern beat Pinkerton.
No, Alvern beat Merrimack because I remember being at that game.
Oh, okay. Then maybe I don't remember. I don't remember who they beat, but I do remember Alvern hosting that game. The other two games, this is an interesting one. Lebanon hosting Bishop Brady. Two teams, Keith Matty and Mark Yetton coaching against each other. These are two storied programs in the history. Lebanon has been to more Division II or Class I tournaments than any team in the state. They get a chance to go back there. They made it to the quarterfinals a few times the last few years, but they haven't won. They lost to Hanover last year in the quarters. They have Bishop Brady at home. As I said in the preview, Brady just gave up 37 points to Nick Lloyd, good little guard from John Stark. That doesn't bode well if you're playing David Hampton today.
No.
You better be on that kid or he'll go for 40. So that's a very, very interesting game. And then another interesting game, Portsmouth, the defending champs, hosting Souhegan tonight at Stone Gymnasium. And again, Souhegan, we'll talk about this, playing with a ton of emotion and really channeling it in a really good way right now. They played terrific against Hanover. I watched that tape. And I really was impressed by Mike Heaney, just the way he handled everything. It was emotional after the game, but really eloquent, talking about Tony Barksdale, who, of course, tragically died last weekend at Boston University as a freshman, former basketball and football player at Sauhegan, and that was quite a bit. If people haven't checked out that video on our site, you really need to go see it. And Mike Heaney's speech before, and Brandon Len wearing Tony Barksdale's jersey,
and Jake Kennedy hitting a running half-court three-pointer. This is 6'5", 280-pound UNH offensive line-bound Jake Kennedy draining a three. Talk about some help. You hear about the Leprechauns helping the Celtics at the Garden. Someone might have been helping Jake Kennedy sink that three and switched it. It was a heck of a night.
He was #SportsCenter top 10.
Yeah, that was a season high for Tyler Ford, 15, and a season high for Jake Kennedy, 21.
You know
what
Dave?
a time to do that.
You want some exposure for your website? Somehow get this. I actually have a connection at ESPN, believe it or not. If you read Matthew Berry, all right, he mentions John Parolin from ESPN Stats and Information. And if you knew John Parolin, you would pick up on it. And he's mentioned him a few times over the course when I'm reading the fantasy football stuff. And I know John Parolin. I used to work with him at a radio station down in Nashville where I worked. And now he works for ESPN. And like I said, he's been mentioned by Matthew Perry multiple occasions in his ESPN.com. Matthew Berry. What did I say, Matthew Perry?
Yeah.
The guy from Friends.
He was fantastic. Chandler Bing.
Chandler Bing. Not Chandler Bing.
Running joke on the show.
Anyway,
Chandler Jing's ball.
I am going to try and get a hold of John Parolin and say, hey, check out this story, because John's a BG guy, a Nashville guy, and knows Sauhegan and probably knows about this story. So I'm going to try and get us some exposure on ESPN, and who knows, maybe we can get that highlight of Jake Kennedy's three up in one of those ESPN documentary. I'm just trying to get some play for the website.
Yeah, shameless self-promotion.
If anything has a chance, something like that does.
Promoted our site, so hey, I have no problem with it.
So
yeah,
anyway,
it was a great video to watch. I watched it yesterday, and it was it's seeing a guy, and Mike Heaney's become a friend of mine over the years, and just seeing him reacting, talking about Tony, it was
got
something
choked
else.
Up.
Yeah, deservedly so, understandably so, I should say. But
all right, is that the rundown in D2? There is that other quarterfinal today in D1.
Oh, and yes, Trinity plays Bedford at 4:00. So to run it down, you got 1:00 Derryfield versus Lisbon, which I'll be at. 3:00 Conant versus Campbell. 3v3, we'll have video of that. Again, any games that we do, you can buy on DVD, by the way. And then 4:00 Bedford Trinity, and then 7:00 is the 4 Division II quarterfinal games. And then next Tuesday night is.
And I'll be at the Wyndham Cole Brown game.
Yeah. Oh, are you going to, John?
Yeah.
John's doing that?
Yeah.
Double duty. And then you guys are animals.
And we're going to try, if Conant and Campbell gets done in a pretty expeditious manner, we're going to try and race over to McHugh. We're going to try and race over to McHugh Gym and catch the end of that Trinity Bedford game.
Yeah, I think I'll be there coming back. If anyone wants to find me at 11:30 this morning, Elliot Bless and I and the Littleton coaching staff will be at an establishment in Plymouth, just getting ready for the game.
Very nice.
So we're excited for that one.
Very nice. We'll take a break, come back, and we'll talk about that D3 championship game, Conant and Campbell. And I have a Max Gouveia pronunciation determination.
We got it.
His father told me last night, he was at the South game. Mark Gouveia said, "You're saying my son's name right. I don't know what he's telling you," because Max Gouveia told me that it's Gouveia. His dad told me it was Gouveia.
It's Gouveia.
And his dad last night said, "It's Gouveia. I don't know what Max is talking about. Our last name is Gouveia." So today, Max Gouveia. That's who you are, and I'm sticking to it. We got more coming up. New Hampshire High School Hoop Show on WGIR, News Radio 610 and 96.7. I got nothing. I'm sorry. I got nothing. I mean,
you used your cherry pie.
We had cherry pie last week. Good breakfast.
The late, great Janie Lane. You give it up every time.
There we go. It is
vodka and pills in a hotel room.
The New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. We're talking high school sports here. We're talking about vodka and pills in a hotel room.
It happens.
Pete Terrier, Dave Haley, NHSportsPage.com. Special guest in studio who apparently was just working out next door and was tuned into iHeartRadio at the Planet Fitness. And Brett Sellingham from BST He is in the house. He joined us. Brett, thanks for coming by, and I'm glad you're coming by because our next topic of discussion is going to be Division III championship, the Conant Orioles against the Campbell Cougars. And if there's anybody who knows about how certain players and certain teams could compare against other teams regardless of division, I think it's you, because you see these guys play, they work out with you, they play in your summer leagues, and you can just tell when a player, no matter where he comes from, what team, what program, he could play on any program in the state. And with Conant, you're thinking about Devin Springfield. I mean, I've seen him play now 2 times in the last 2 playoff games, and to me, he's as good as anybody in the state. You know, you hear a lot of POY talk, Player of the Year talk in D1. If Devin Springfield was in D1, I think he'd be in that conversation, don't you, Brett?
I agree. Devin, I got a chance to work Devin out last spring, I guess it was, or last spring. It was the first time I had a chance to see him play, and he really does. He's got a great high IQ. His skill set is multi-dimensional, which is what we talk about a lot. Is not being one-dimensional, not being able to just stroke it. He's able to knock down shots, but he's able to make reads on the fly. He's able to get to the basket, make good decisions on the ball. That whole program out there at Conant is pretty impressive. Those kids, we've had numerous of kids from Conant traveling out from Jaffrey to SNHU, or to the Sports Zone, to work out with us on a regular basis, and that's not a short jaunt. So you know that they're
serious about it.
Yeah, they're serious about it out there. So
it's interesting you just said that, because I use on the semifinal previews, I do blind quotes from coaches. So I'm going to give away one of my sources, but Lauren Lucas had a great quote about Devin. It was fantastic, and he said everything he does is with a purpose. As soon as he catches the ball, he's put into the floor immediately. He's in a triple threat position. He's shooting in flow immediately. He said there's no wasted motion with that kid. Like, he knows what he's doing before he gets the ball, and it's exactly what you were just saying. He comes from that basketball family. Who was saying it to me? I said, I think it was Jim Mulvey. I said, those Conant kids are good. He goes, isn't it just that one Springfield family? They got like every year they got a new Springfield kid, because Maddie, I think, has already been offered by Boston College.
And she's a sophomore or a freshman or something?
Freshman.
Yeah. Wow.
Freshman. But
I think they've had 4 Springfields 1,000-point scorers at Conant. Is that the deal?
David's the father. Yeah, I know he was a tremendous athlete as well.
Brooke, the sister, Devin. And then there's got to be another one, or maybe it's just 3. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but
I know the Friels out of Oyster River.
Yeah,
had a lot of 1,000-point scorers. I mean, Keith and Greg and Jillian.
Yeah,
you know, and then maybe Jerry Friel obviously was the coach at UNH for a while, but that's a good basketball team. Plus Springfield is 6'3". He's a lefty shooter. He's very long. You know who was another real good player for them, who I think could play on anybody's team? Rob O'Brien.
Oh, Rob O'Brien. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a junior.
He's a junior. Kid dunks. And he gets it.
6'1".
This is right in our wheelhouse, what I'm about to say, but going back to when you and I were in high school a million years, you at Mascoma and I at Guilford, we played each other in a state championship
game. You're a Mascoma grad?
He beat me in a state championship game.
The Royals?
Yep, my sophomore year.
We're not talking about that. But going way back, I'm never getting over it. Going way back, you know, this whole, and you were one of these people, but I'm trying to pull out, this whole Division I, Division II snob thing, people have to understand, the elite teams from Division III can play with anybody. I mean, that Portsmouth team last year that won Division II, love to see them play Merrimack. Love to see them play Merrimack last year. They might have beat them. I mean, with Kamal Walker and Billy Lane. So people have to get it out of their heads that, I mean, Cole Brown tonight is playing in a quarterfinal game in Division II. Conant beat him by 40 this winter, and you know, going back to when we played, his great Mascoma teams used to play Lebanon, who I think won a championship back there, went to the finals one year against Oyster River and lost. They beat him in a Christmas tournament. We beat Merrimack Valley with Scott Drapo way back when. My point is, and Littleton beat Kennett with Jeff Perry back in the day. My point is, these elite Division III teams can play with anybody, and Conant in particular. There was one coach in Division I who I didn't talk to him about it directly, but I'm going to ask him directly so I can quote him. But he supposedly told a friend that Conant was as good as any Division I team that he had played all season long, and he played everyone obviously in D1. And he said Conant is as good this year as any team in Division I.
Look, Campbell, I was talking to Coach Langlois after the game the other night, and they're playing Conan in the championship game. And I talked to him about the tough schedule that they play. And they play in that Chick-fil-A holiday tournament in Nashua. And he's like, yeah, we beat Nashua North this year. Now, Nashua North was not good this year, but they still beat them. And I remember they beat Alvern a couple of years ago, Campbell. So Campbell's a good team as well. And I think they are going to get beat today, and I think Conant wants to really run up the score on them.
I think they want to smash them,
I think they do, and I think that we may have a blowout today. But I'll tell you what, I thought that Campbell was going to lose to Berlin the other night.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the video of that Berlin-Campbell game, man, those kids from Berlin are jacked. I compared them.
A lot of wood to be stacked.
There is a lot of wood to be stacked apparently in Berlin. I thought they were like a depressed economy and those mills were all shut down, but maybe it's just cheap labor or something because those kids, I mean, their backcourt was 5'5" and 5'6". Ryan Richard 5'5" and Dimitri Giannos 5'6", but they were like 5'5", 5'6" tall and 5'5", 5'6" wide with the shoulders. I mean, talk about huge. And that kid Levi Arsenal,
he looks just
sophomore.
like Curtis. Have you seen him?
Yes.
Wow.
Dave Chase from Hawks had a great quote to me once. He goes, "Those kids either get a job, they work, or they play basketball. What do you think they're going to choose?" I mean, that's why they got all those kids.
I'll tell you what. I mean, remember Ivan Putski, the Polish power?
Yes.
That's what Levi Arsenal reminds me of.
Right.
I mean, small, but just...
Can you imagine the pickup games in the Arsenal driveway? I mean, they seriously they're like the Gronkowskis. They're going to be like bleeding and knocking each other over. I mean, my God, they got to beat that. You know, you see Levi Arsenal, and he's not a big kid. He's a force of nature down there, and he's moving people around. He's battling bigger guys, but he's been getting beat up by his older brother. I mean, Jesse Arsenal and Curtis, and there's another brother, and they all still play. I think Jesse runs the Berlin League up there, which is a big deal up there. Like, there's a lot. Don Picard still plays in it, and the high school kids play adults all summer, and that's what really helps them along. Yeah.
Do you think Campbell, Brett, has a chance today against Conant?
I think they're definitely fighting an uphill battle. I think with Josiah Wade, I guess, is out. For academic reasons, unfortunately. But without him, I think it makes it very difficult for them, especially on that big floor at SNHU with the speed, quickness and versatility of the Conant team. I think it's going to be a pretty long day for Campbell, I think.
And it was textbook Conant basketball the other night. I brought Allison to the game. She made it through 3 quarters.
It was so funny.
She's calling it the boring game. So no, please, people in Conant, understand she's sick, so please don't hold it against her. But it completely fell right into the trap of how you lose to Conant, where Newport got down early, like 14-4 or something like that. And Andrew Hood, who's a great little player, but he started.
He's not little.
He's not little, and he's a very good player. He started kind of trying to get him back in it by himself. Okay, so what does he do? He's taking long contested jumpers. Well, what happens? Ezra Hodgson or Springfield get the rebound, and boom, Rob O'Brien or Carlson have already released. They throw a baseball pass over his head, layup at the other end, and this happened 3-4 times. And it's like, Conant, when you shoot those long jumpers, you better. I was sitting behind Mark Gavia, Max's father, and I said, you better hit those shots, because if you miss, boom, it's over your head and it's a layup. And I mean, that's boom, boom, boom. I mean, rinse, wash, repeat. That's what they've been doing forever. If you take bad shots, it's 2 points the other way.
Yeah.
And that's what they did in Newport.
And Conant doesn't have a ton of size. I mean, you mentioned the Hodgson kid. He's their big guy, but he's only 6'2", and it's Eli.
Well, Devin's their tallest kid.
Ezra was they have a kid, Anthony Gonsalves, who is like 6'5". He's a big dude.
Yeah.
But he doesn't play. It looks like he's got bad knees or something. But I think Conant's very, very solid. Campbell impressed me. I mean, they're solid too. A kid who I thought played pretty well for them was the kid Nick Friesen had 19 points in the game. Jacob Morgan, Max Gouvet, obviously good players.
That's their big three.
Yeah.
That's their guys.
They're not very deep. Campbell's got a couple of guys that they bring off the bench, Panagiotis and another big guy, Josh LeBlanc. I just like Campbell in this game. I do want to talk about Hood for a second, because I hadn't seen him play, and I saw him like in layup lines last year for Pembroke and a couple of cameo appearances and blowouts. The kid's body, I mean, he's 6'4", very, very slender.
It's a sophomore.
Yeah, a sophomore, and just by watching him play, his shots weren't falling the other night. He was 7 for 22 and I think 2 for 10 on threes. but you just look at him as an observer and you say, man, this kid is really good or has the potential to be really good. In the next couple of years, he's going to be a force in that league.
Have you worked with him before?
I have not. He's part of Matt's program.
Yeah.
He's part of with the Raiders. And actually, I spoke with Matt the other day, and we had actually talked about him a little bit. And Matt's very impressed with his development and how he's come along. He's really, he's developing that in-game IQ. What we're talking about with Pat Welch, same thing. He's starting to really make in-game reads, playing with a purpose, understanding the game as a whole. Andrews, obviously being a sophomore, has got some more time to do that, but he's definitely climbing the ladder pretty quickly.
Yeah, I thought one of the problems for Newport was when they got down, Hood started taking so many shots that nobody else on that team could kind of get into a rhythm. And when you're playing on a college floor for the first time, Newport hasn't been there before, that nobody else kind of was getting the ball enough to kind of get a feel for where they were. And you know what I mean? That really, you got to sort of get everyone involved early so everyone can kind of go, okay. And again, it's 16-4, and now one guy's taking all your shots. They never kind of could find any sort of rhythm.
They don't really have anybody else. I mean, they got that kid Derek Paré, the lefty shooter.
Spencer Corona's a pretty good little player.
He's okay. I mean, he didn't play that.
I
well,
don't say I blame
opinion.
Hood for shooting. I'm just obviously he's their guy. He hit some tough shots.
Yeah.
Every shot he hit was contested, but they just never seemed to. That's the thing with Conan. They punch you in the mouth right off the bat, and if you're not ready, then the game's over pretty quick.
And they just got a bunch of different guys that can hurt you. I mean, Jake Carlson, Kyle Carlin, Devin Springfield, Rob O'Brien, Eli Hodgson. I mean, that's their starters.
Carlson didn't play the first time against Campbell, which really did hurt him.
And they're all solid. They can all shoot. They can all handle. They can all defend. They can all run. I mean, they're just a real solid team, and I like Kona in that game. We'll see, though. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
You look back at championship games of old. I remember what Kona, the last time they won was 3 years ago or something.
They beat Prospect Mountain, I think, 4 years ago. I remember you joking with Eric in your interview after you said the drought or something.
Yeah,
like
I'm
that.
like, it's been an eternity since you guys been to a championship.
I remember
game.
John Doyle from Foster's after they lost to Summersworth that year in the quarters first, and when they broke the streak, and John Doyle said, "Is the dynasty over?" And I thought Eric was going to hit him with a mop over the head or something. He's like, "We just lost for the first time in like 5 years."
Yeah,
I don't know.
They won 5 straight.
We're not going anywhere.
To 2010, they won 5 in a row. But the game that they played against Berlin in 2010, 41-35, the Sean Martin
great team, ugly game. But yeah, that was a great Sean Martin. That was a great team with Kym Kemp and James Beard was a big guy who I loved.
Yeah, the Beard.
He was there the other night watching the game.
Fear the Beard. They had all the kids wearing the fake beards and stuff.
He was a great player for them.
We got to take a timeout, come back, and want to talk a little bit about Division II, and I want to get your thoughts, Brett, on the D1 semifinals, although we don't know that fourth team, Trinity and Bedford. Whoever wins that game will take on Nashua South, BG, and Spalding, the other Final Four game on Tuesday night. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Special guest Brett Sellingham from BST Basketball in the house. Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. I'm Pete Terrier. Back after these, News Radio 610 and 96.7. Well, as I said earlier in the last segment, I'm certainly feeling good about Conant's chances in the D3 championship game today against Campbell. I expect them to win that game.
That was a stretch.
A motley crew of a team at times this year. The Souhegan Sabres struggled. I think a lot of people had them, potential Final Four team in Division II, but they had some ups and downs. They had a slow start. They ended up with a 7 seed. Had a tough matchup the other night in the prelims against Hanover. Passed that with flying colors, and I think they had some help from above, and they're playing with a purpose, and the passing of their former teammate Tony Barksdale has certainly given them an emotional lift. My question now is, can that emotional lift carry them over a team that we know is real tough? The second seed, we're talking about the Portsmouth Clippers, who finished 15-3, blew out Goffstown by 30 the other night. And can Souhegan's emotional high here, that divine intervention, if you will, can it help them win in Portsmouth tonight?
It's going to be tougher on the road, and kind of carrying that. And I don't know how long all that.
They're going to a funeral today, Dave.
Oh,
they're
they
having
are.
a celebration, for Anthony Barksdale. at the high school today. I think the funeral is today.
Yeah.
I mean, they're playing tonight.
I remember, and in fact, Jay McKenna and I were just talking about it last night. I remember when Jack Ford, who was actually was Brett and I's old AAU coach back in the day, great guy. Jack Ford, legendary coach at Winnicott. When his funeral took place, it was the day that Winnicott played Dover a few years back, and I happened to just cover that game, and the Winnicott kids were dead legs. I mean, they just couldn't do anything that night. And Jay said they were so spent emotionally that they didn't have it, and you would have to be concerned that would happen again, because it's going to be a very emotional day. I'm sure, family members are going to get up and talk about Tony, and rightfully, of course, it's
Did the
his funeral.
Winnicott team that year have a Brandon Len?
They were pretty good. They were pretty good that year. They just it could go either way. I just think it's really difficult for those kids. I mean, it's really hard to ask them to. What do you think? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the emotional drain. Unfortunately, I lost a friend this week, and I can remember on Monday and Tuesday. From those, Wednesday and Thursday, I was just emotionally drained. It was tough to even get out of bed. It was just, it wears you down. And I think there is some special kids, some special people that can actually use that as an energy. And Brandon is a very, very tough kid. He's mentally tough. He's physically tough kid. If anyone can do it, I would say Brandon would be able to do it. I guess the biggest thing, more so than that, is just. This time of year is having to focus, and I think if you don't have that mental focus especially going into Portsmouth, a team that is by far one of the better coached teams in the state, to not be able to have your 100% focus is going to be pretty tough to go in there and get a W. But if anyone can do it, Coach Heaney and the staff can do it. We'll see what happens.
It's not a cakewalk for Pembroke. Well, it probably is a cakewalk for them to the championship game, because we talked about this earlier. They're going to play Pelham tonight without Keith Brown from Pelham. He broke his foot, you said?
He broke his foot, yeah.
Was that in the game against Plymouth the other night?
I don't know.
All right, well, he didn't have any points in that game, so maybe it happened before, maybe it happened early in that game, whatever. But you got to expect Pembroke's going to win easily tonight. And then they would take on, if they do win tonight, the winner of a 12-13 game. Now, Wyndham and Cole Brown could give them problems.
By the way, Wyndham lost to Pembroke late in the season, 52-48.
Sure, close game, but you got to think that Pembroke is not going to slip up.
No.
Even though they're facing a double-digit seed, they're not going to slip up with a chance to get to Durham.
No.
No,
They're
that would
favorite.
be in Durham. That would be in Durham.
Yes.
I think they're going to get there. Now, if it's Portsmouth on the other side, or it could be a Sauhegan team, that's on emotion and all that. I mean, if they beat Portsmouth, to me, all bets are off. I just wonder if this Pembroke team is just head and shoulders above everybody else. I know their record says that they are, but I'm not sure that they necessarily are.
I feel like the X factor. I mean, Pembroke's obviously very, very good. Matt does a tremendous job with those kids. I think the X factor is going to be UNH. I think you get on that big floor, a lot of those teams are going to have a hard time containing. Again, they're very similar to Conant in the sense that all five guys on the floor are multi-dimensional. They can get out and they can run, they can finish, they can shoot, they can do it all. So when you get on a big floor with all those multi-dimensional skill set players and speed, quickness, I think UNH is probably going to be the X factor moving over there.
You think it will be an advantage for them?
Yeah, I definitely do.
I do too. And I think they're used to playing more probably in college gyms for AAU and so forth. But Jim Mulvey made an interesting point, I think, on the show. He was saying the basket at UNH where everyone's walking in is a really hard basket to shoot on. And he was saying how he's seen so many games kind of turn because one team was shooting at that first and they got down. And that far wall, it's easier to shoot at. But, yeah, I mean, the Wyndham beating Oyster River didn't shock me. It surprised me. There's, two levels, shocking and surprising. That didn't, because Oyster River, all season long, I work with a guy, Vince Ball, who works with Oyster River, and he said all season long they would just come down and throw it into the stands. It was a problem with that team, and they turned the ball over too much. And their point guard, Anthony Shea, got the flu and couldn't play much, played like 8 minutes, didn't score, and he's their second best player. And Oyster River, couldn't overcome Wyndham.
Got blown out.
Well, it was foul shots at the end.
Okay.
It was a close game throughout. Cole Brown scoring 60. I wrote about this. They hadn't scored over 50 points in like a month. or I think they had one time in the last month, 66 points at Hollis Brookline against the number 3 ranked defense. How the heck did that happen? And then I went to the National Telegraph to read all about it, and they had like a 50-word summary. Nobody was even at the game.
I know.
And, hey, Gary Fitz can only be at one place at one time. But what happened? I mean, I still sit here on Saturday morning and say, what the heck happened? How did Hollis Brookline lose at home to a Co-Brown who lost to Kingswood? 2-16 Kingswood at home 2 weeks ago. I'm doing my Jerry Seinfeld voice where I'm screaming.
That's why they call it March Madness.
Oh, my lordy.
And that's why I'm headed to Wyndham tonight for Co-Brown Wyndham. Look for the video highlights tomorrow.
There's a game I didn't think we'd be covering.
Certainly I didn't either. We'll take a break. Want to get Brett Sellingham from BST, his take on the Division I Final Four, even though we only know 3 of those teams in the Final Four. We'll find out the other one this afternoon. Also, hey, shout out to one of your BST guys, Mike Stiles, Southern New Hampshire University Penman Northeast 10 championship game against Franklin Pierce.
Excuse me.
An old-school rivalry.
Hold on. He's a New Hampshire sports page guy. He's my summer league writer, man.
Okay,
Mike
there you
Stiles.
go. There you
He's
go.
part of our family, too.
I'm rooting for the Penmen. How
Love
about
Stiles.
that? You
Love
like
him.
that? Quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show. New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. News Radio 610 96.7. Heading up towards the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. The madness of March in full effect. We've got a final participant in the D1 Final Four at UNH on Tuesday night. TBD, to be determined this afternoon. Trinity High School in Manchester. Bedford, the team that people say is the hottest team in the state of New Hampshire right now, and it's hard to argue it. They're taking on Trinity. Winner of that game will take on Nashua South in the first of the 2 semifinal games. Actually, that's the second of the 2 semifinal games on Tuesday night. Lundholm Gym at Durham. The other one, it is BG and Spalding. We got Brett Sellingham from BST Basketball in the house. Dave Haley, of course, from NHSportsPage.com. I'm Pete Terrier. Want to ask you, Brett, who do you like in that Bedford Trinity game, first of all?
It's a tough call right there. I mean, Bedford's is obviously playing really hot right now, but Trinity is a pretty impressive team. I've seen them play a couple times this year, especially towards the end of the season. They were really putting it together. Carmen Gianpetruzzi is playing like a man possessed right now. He's multi-dimensional. He used to be one-dimensional. He used to be able to stroke it. Now he can really put the ball on the floor. He can either finish at the basket or find open players. So it's a true toss up today. Again, I guess probably home court advantage is going to play a big role over there. So I would say probably Trinity, but I would like to see Bedford maybe pull it out.
And you work with Sam Thomas, the big man, 6'8". He's a senior. Has started to come on as of late. Real slow start. People kind of questioning him. Hey, the kid's 6'8". He should be dominating. Well, it doesn't necessarily work that way, but you say he's been improving leaps and bounds.
Yes, you know what? The kid is like I said to you guys, he's just late to the party, but he's got things that you just can't teach. He's very agile. He's long. He is explosive. Unfortunately, when you're late to the party, you got to change a mindset. And for him, his mindset is more kind of layups and being soft. We need to, change that where he's attacking the rim with strength. If he had another year, he'd be very impressive. But I think he's coming on strong right now. And we had Taylor Grande as well, who put in a ton of work in the offseason and has, again, has adjusted to Fitzpatrick's system and has really come along right now and is doing some good things.
A lot of times it's about the pieces fitting, and those pieces kind of fit. And James Caparel, is the guy who he finishes dump down passes, he weak side rebounds. He's always rotating defensively. He's always in the right spot. Like the kid always knows where the kid's never taking stupid shots. James Caparel's not coming down and pulling up from 18. He just knows his role, does it well. And Cam Meservy is kind of a little one-dimensional, but he's a terrific shooter, and he's got size. And Trinity has always had trouble all season long with the Eric Gendron kind of players that are taller guards because the Trinity guards, Ryan Otis, Brad Rhodes, are smaller. And those guys are able to get up, elevate over them, and shoot. So I think matchup-wise, I think Sam Thomas is going to have a tough time today because I think Mabor, Mabor's getting taller. I mean, we were sitting there at the Central game and I was standing next to him. That kid is tall.
Do we have to mark him up to 6'8" now?
Oh, my goodness. But he, I think Sam's going to have that's why I think Trinity wins, is because and I think it's going to be a great game, because I think they can a little neutralize him a little bit. And if you're running everything through him, that kind of can put a cog in the wheel. But, yeah, I mean, I think the guard play is going to be big, Taylor Grande, and I like Trinity in that game. And I think Pete's excited because he's a couple wins away from an all-Nashua final.
You know what? And it's funny because I was thinking about this last night. A month ago, 2 months ago, whatever, we're like, oh, there's going to be 3 Manchester teams in the Final Four.
True.
And now Central out, Memorial out in the first round. Trinity, who knows?
They're not there
They
yet.
might not be there. It could be BG, Nashua, Spalding, and Bedford. And that would be a shocker. And I kind of poo-pooed everybody's determination that this is a wide-open year in Division I.
Oh, it is.
I was like, no, this is Trinity and Central headed for a matchup in the championship game. That ain't happening.
We were all ready for that Pembroke-Portsmouth championship game, weren't we? What happened? We showed up to the Final Four, and Cole Brown was there. I mean, This is why it's such a great time of year. And I remember a couple of years ago, or last year, Berlin, Conant. Everybody all season long, it's going to be Conant, Berlin. Well, Prospect Mountain beat Conant in the Final Four. Every game, there's nothing easy. And even when these teams do advance most of the time, these are grinded out affairs. And I write about this every year in my recap at the end of the year. Every champion that wins it has that one moment where it looked like their season was ending. And Merrimack went to overtime with BG last year in the first round.
South's had 2 moments like that already.
Exactly. So this is why we go to so many games. It's fantastic.
Brett, quickly here, who do you like in that BG Spalding game?
That's a tough call for me. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about those teams. I know they just played recently, right? And Spalding, I believe, won that game
by 11.
Yeah, I think the just the overall team at Spalding is tough for BG to match up with, but just knowing from the outside, but I don't know enough to really speak on that.
We should mention before we go, Ian Sester, member of the Northfield Mount Herman team. We cover that on our website.
Former
the
Trinity point guard last year.
National champion at Northfield Mount Herman. I know Brett's worked with him a lot. We covered him last year. Good kid.
And they beat Brewster
in the final.
And Colin McManus from Bedford also a member of that Herman team.
Elliot Bless done a good job covering the preps for us all year. I guess the feedback's been incredible. The prep coach is loving it, what we've done. So check it out on the site.
All right, Brett. Hey, thanks so much for popping in here. We really appreciate the knowledge. It's going to be a fun day of basketball. Just to set the scene, I'm headed to do the Conant game against Campbell D3 Championship. We'll have video highlights of that tomorrow, nhsportspage.com. Little bit of that Trinity Bedford game, hopefully. And then tonight, Wyndham Co-Brown on the website tomorrow. For Dave Haley, I'm Pete Terrier. Have a good Saturday, everybody.
Love that we create.